Even men at the top of their game find themselves wanting more from life. Whether it's more meaning, unshakable confidence, a bigger impact, more money, deeper love, a hotter sex life, or a powerful legacy. Find out how good your life can be on this episode of Man Alive. Also, as I've supported men in their love and work lives for 15 years now, many men ask for the right words to say to be more successful, attractive, and desirable. But I found it's not so simple as giving scripts or lines because every man is different. So giving words or scripts would be like giving a tall, thin man a shorter, wider man's pants, or vice versa. The words have to make sense for you and your personality, and there's so much happening beneath the surface that people are responding to. If you're interested in how to become a better lover and leader in your own unique way, go to ShaynaJamesCoaching.com/quiz, or you can text ALIVE to 44144. It only takes a couple minutes and you'll start to get an idea of how you can be both more respected and desired. After you fill it out, we can schedule a time to review your quiz and talk about your specific challenges and desires. So again, go to either ShaynaJamesCoaching.com/quiz or text ALIVE to 44144. That's ALIVE to 44144. Enjoy this episode of Man Alive. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Man Alive. I am excited to be here today. I'm your host, Shayna James, and I'm excited to talk about what to do when you don't love your career, right? I believe you deserve a career you love. And while life isn't all rainbows and butterflies and, it can't be perfect necessarily, there's also a way where when you think about it, you're spending the majority of your time in your work. And so how can you actually, either step into a career you love or make changes in a career you're in? These are really important questions. So we have Kyle Elliott here to guide us to answer these questions. Kyle, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be speaking to you today.
Yeah. So as a career coach, I imagine you see the whole range of issues and struggles and, someone needing to make huge changes, someone needing to make small changes. I imagine you see it all.
Yeah, I have some people who just feel stuck in their current role and they say, Kyle, I don't know what I'm doing, but I want to figure out what's next for me. I have other people who say, you know what, Kyle, I like my job, but I just don't love it. How can I make small changes to figure out what's next for me at this current company? Mm-hmm. And then everywhere in between. So it really depends on the person and their situation. And sometimes those changes can be massive. And sometimes it just takes a little rethinking and reimagining.
Yeah, great. And what was some of your journey? How did you get into this career coaching role?
So this journey happened 100% by accident. So I never planned on doing this. And I think that's helpful to share because a lot of people think you have to have a 5-year or a 10-year plan where you want to be. And sometimes it happens 100% by accident. And that was the case for me. I originally started on Fiverr, literally charging $5 for resume reviews.
$5?
Profile summaries, literally $5.
Wow.
And once Fiverr took their cut, it was like $3.75. So I buy a Starbucks with one review. I had to do 2 of them to afford a Starbucks or a $5 foot long.
Oh my God.
And then over time, I just kept raising my prices. My dad gave me the advice, hey, once you have a wait list, just double your prices. And I just kept doubling them over time. And then about 4 years ago, I had a great full-time job in Silicon Valley that I loved. But I said, you know what if I ran this business full time? My staff kept asking and saying, hey, when are you going to leave us, Kyle? And I had never thought of that. I didn't know, besides university career counselors, I didn't know people did this. I didn't know there was career coaches who ran their own businesses. So I did research, made the leap of faith. And now I've been doing this for almost 4 years now, running my business full time.
Wow. So you were doing Fiverr, then you also had another full-time job. Were you doing Fiverr on the side?
Yeah, so it was on the side, just 5-10 hours a week on top of college, just to make extra money. And then it just blew up and kept growing. And I left Fiverr, went to Craigslist, found people there, surprisingly. And it just kept growing and growing from 5 hours a week to about 30 hours a week.
Well, interesting. And it also seems like you went from, $5 resumes to now coaching some of Silicon Valley's, executives.
Yeah. And I
How did that
find
happen?
oftentimes, yeah, people just see, okay, Kyle, you're coaching these Silicon Valley executives. But that's not where it started. And a lot of clients were through word of mouth. So someone would find me on Fiverr, then later it left Fiverr, refer me to someone. And so much of my business came by word of mouth and referrals
Yeah.
that people just kept referring me. And I never even set out to coach people in Silicon Valley and in high tech. It just happened by accident because a
Wow.
lot of the people who were referring each other were friends and classmates and colleagues in the Bay Area who were trying to get into Facebook and LinkedIn and Google. And then one person would get into Facebook and then their friends would say, oh my gosh, how did you get into Facebook? And then they would tell other people. And then it just blew up after that, because when you think of hiring a coach, rarely do people say, oh, I need a coach. It takes a lot of introspection to say that. But instead, someone else says, oh, have you considered a coach? And then they shared my name, and then it just happened over and over and over.
Right. Especially if they say, have you considered a coach? I used this coach who helped me actually
Mm-hmm.
get clear and get organized and do what it took to get into Facebook or to get into one of these companies.
Precisely. And there's nothing more powerful than someone else telling you, here's what worked for me. It can work
Yeah.
for you as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how do you know, or how do you help someone know whether the career change needs to be major or whether it's something that could actually happen within the career or the company that they're working for?
One of my favorite questions to ask is, what is the real problem here? What is the true problem? And going beyond just the surface to see what's the issue here that brought you to this point of questioning your career in the first place. Was it a conversation at work? Was it finances? Was it something else? Figuring out what it was that actually led to this conversation and
Uh-huh.
these feelings can be really powerful. And pulling the onion back. And sometimes when you pull the onion back, you realize really it is the organization, or it could be this role. And other times it's something completely different. It could be that you just don't have enough spontaneity in your day. And that's something that can be added in your role without switching careers. And other times it's be repaired and you need to move to another function or another organization. And I think even there, the changes can be small. It can be, maybe you don't have to leave this organization. You can just move to another team if the
Uh-huh.
real issue is a toxic supervisor, or you can move to a different role. If I was just talking to someone before this call, if you really want to lead people and your current role doesn't allow you that, it could just be moving to another team or
Mm.
asking for a promotion. So these changes aren't always massive. I have a lot of clients who come to me and say, Kyle, I need to get a new job. And sometimes it's maybe you just need a promotion
Right.
or a salary increase or a change of how you're looking at the situation.
Yeah. Okay. And then how do you help people have the courage, right, to ask for a promotion or a change? Because that's not necessarily just the easiest thing to do.
No, it's scary. One of my favorite questions to ask, and it's two-part. So it's actually two questions, is what's the worst case scenario? What's the worst thing that's going to happen? And I've yet to have a client get fired for asking for a raise
Nice.
or for a promotion. And then what's the best case scenario? What's likely to happen? And I find just asking those two questions and actually what ifing all this out. What can happen if I don't ask for a raise? What can happen if I do ask for a raise? And looking at those worst case scenarios and best case scenarios can be really powerful to figure out what's actually possible if you don't take action and what's possible if you do take action. And
Mm.
just there can help people really get out of their own way when it comes to taking action.
Yeah. Clarity is so important. And that watching our minds run away with these stories, right? Like, oh, I could get fired, or that person's not going to respect me anymore if I ask for this. And oftentimes just the opposite could be true, right? Someone might respect you more, or they might want to actually promote you because they're seeing your drive or whatever it may be. But our minds are so tricky.
Exactly, exactly. And it can be helpful to have someone else talk through it with you rather than just
Hmm.
yourself and being in your mind, and having someone challenge your thoughts. Say, okay, well, how likely is it that you'll actually get fired for asking for a
Right.
raise? And then people realize, okay, this is silly. But those thoughts can keep you up at 2 a.m. saying, oh my gosh, what if I ask for a raise and they fire me? Or what if I ask to switch to another team and my boss hates me? I stay on the team. It can be really quick to go
Hmm.
down that hole. But someone else reflecting with you and asking those powerful questions can make all the difference in your career.
Yeah. And as you talk about that, I think about a lot of the men I work with who are in their 40s, 50s, who might want to make a career change, but it really shakes the boat. They've got family to take care of and financial responsibilities. And I'm curious if you have any advice for those men.
Something I always ask my clients to think about, because most of my clients are also in their 40s, 50s, 60s, they're senior managers, executives, is to have a conversation with your family. So not just your partner, but with your family about what you're thinking and what you're going through. Bring it up at the dinner table and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking.
Like family, meaning your kids even?
Yes. I think it can be powerful. I mean, depending on their age, if they're 4 or 5, you're going to be mindful about it.
Well, you might get some interesting inspiration.
Questions. I just assigned a client this because they were thinking, it was a man, he was thinking about his next role. And I said, ask your kids, ask them, if I wasn't X executive, what could you see me doing instead? And they brought some amazing ideas.
Wow.
That we were able to talk through. So I think you're going to have to adjust it depending on the age of your children, but it can be powerful to involve them in this conversation, because you spend so much time at work, like you said, you really want to ensure your family's invested as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I could see, having a 9-year-old. I mean, there are moments of just brilliance and clarity that come through kids. And then there are crazy, silly things, but even the crazy, silly things can lead to something that we never would have thought of.
Yeah, I remember talking to another client, and she brought to me, she said, oh, my daughter said she doesn't like that I email so much at my job. And I was like, that's something for us to work on right here. Just these little bits that children give us can be so powerful when navigating our careers.
So true. So true. I'm wondering, I saw that you talk about caffeinating your career process, and your headline, what is it? Is like Caffeinated with Kyle. Is that right?
Caffeinated Kyle. Yeah.
Caffeinated Kyle. What do you mean by that? How do you caffeinate your career?
Yeah, so it's twofold. One, I just love coffee. Ever since like middle school, I would stop at Starbucks. Literally, I would walk to school and stop at the Starbucks and then carry my coffee to school.
Oh my God, cute.
And then the second piece is I find when people are job searching, they tend to just blend in. That's one of the biggest mistakes I see. They describe themselves as forward thinking or dynamic or progressive or innovative, and they're just bland. Their LinkedIn profile is bland. Their resume is bland. Interview is really bland. There's not story or examples. And when I think about caffeinating your career, I think about how can we add some caffeine to this, make it more exciting, make it more fun, give it more energy, and really find a way for you to stand out from other people. And that's something I always ask my clients is, okay, there's going to be 250 or 500 or 1,000 people applying for this role.
Yeah.
What sets you apart from every other person? And if you don't know the answer, the recruiters and hiring managers really aren't going to know the answer to that question. So let's caffeinate everything and make sure you stand out from everyone else.
That's so interesting. I love that. I love coffee too. And caffeinating yourself so that, right, the idea, more creative, you're standing out. I would think that a fear of many people, I don't know, maybe it's just my own fear, is like, oh, wait, if I'm too out there. I've actually had this around my career because I talk a lot about sex and I talk a lot about, well, all the other things. It's sex that actually, that I'm like, whoa, people are going to look at me and think things, right? Because I'm talking about sex. So, how do you help people realize it's okay, or, it's safe, or you're even going to get more of what you want when you put yourself out there as fully you, uniquely you?
Yeah, I think the thing is you are going to turn off when you're too out there. That's just part of it. But you're also going to make room for those people by pushing other people away. You're going to make room for those people who align with you. And what I like doing with my clients is having them think about some of the best moments in their life, when they proposed to their partner, or when they moved across country, or when they had their child, and think about what did all those great best moments have in common. And what they all had in common was risk. I encourage them to look at all these great, fabulous moments and see what they have in common. And it's risk. And I find it's a risk to own your fabulousness, to figure out what sets you apart from everyone else and share it with the world. But if you do that and take risk, to have more great moments, because as we know, the more risk you take, the more great moments you're going to have.
God, that's a hard one to swallow sometimes.
It is. It's scary. But I encourage my clients to look back at those best moments, and they all involved risks. And it's scary, but it's true.
Yeah. Okay. So we have to actually risk if we're going to have something that feels enlivening, aligned, that we're not actually feeling bland and dull and like Groundhog Day.
Yeah. Or I ask my clients, what's their other option? To just accept the status quo. And is that okay with you? And usually the answer is no, I don't want to accept the status quo.
But that's a powerful question because I think it can help people actually realize, oh, that's what I'm doing already, right? I'm accepting, or, a lot of my clients, I'm like, you're kind of settling for mediocre, or you're settling for something that isn't lighting you up. And a lot of times I'm noticing with the guys who identify more as nice guys, right? It's like if someone says no, or someone says, I don't really like that, then they kind of just go along and they're like, okay, I guess this is all I get, right? Or I guess this is what it is. As opposed to that risk that you're saying of, all right, I'm going to say who I am. I'm going to ask for what I want. I'm going to take that risk.
Exactly. And I like asking, when you married your wife or husband or partner, is this the partner you wanted to be? Or when you took this executive role, is this the leader you wanted to be? And it's people to stop and think, is this who I set out to be? And often the answer is no. And it gets them to think, okay, this isn't who I want to be. Who do I want to be? When I first entered this relationship with my partner or with my employer, who did I really want to be? And how am I in alignment or not in alignment with those initial intentions?
Wow, that's powerful. Who did I want to be? Like what was my vision for myself? Who did I see myself as? What type of leadership or role did I envision? And have I given up on my dreams?
Exactly. And it's okay for your dreams to shift, but can it be helpful if you're feeling out of balance at your career to say, okay, what did I originally want? And am I still working toward it? Or did it change? And if it's changed, how have I communicated that with the other person in the relationship, my employer? Or if we're talking about a personal relationship, your partner, and making sure there's that communication of, the vision changed from when we originally entered this relationship. Talk about that.
Oh my God. That's so important, right? I mean, that's ultimately, I think, the heart of everything I do is that communication and being able to first recognize, oh, my vision has changed, or I have these desires, and then to actually be able to communicate them in a way that inspires people and helps with collaboration as opposed to shuts people down.
Precisely. And I think a lot of people have the tools to do it, but sometimes forget they have the tools to practice that assertive, confident, authentic, honest communication with other people. And it can be scary. And again, it's a risk to be vulnerable and honest with someone else.
Yeah. And I love that you just said the word assertive too, right? It's not aggressive. There's a balanced way to be strong and also strong and clear, without being an asshole about it.
Exactly. And I think there's kind of this really spectrum. You have passive communication where the other person wins and you lose. You have aggressive communication where you win, the other person loses. And then you have assertive communication where you both win. And that's the goal in any relationship.
Brilliant. I love that. So good. Okay. I just want to ask another question that's on a slightly different topic, because I know you speak around the country on not only professional development, but mental health and social justice. And just wondering if you can give us a taste of that or how those overlap for you.
Yes. So mental health is one of the most pressing issues when we think of the workplace and people's careers, and it impacts them so much. When I talk with clients and they think about their careers, so often their mental health comes up, whether they're formally diagnosed with a mental health challenge or we're just talking about mental health more broadly, like stress and anxiety. And it's something I talk about a lot, both from the job seeker side, how can we reduce your stress and anxiety during the job search? And then both on the employer side, how can we ensure employers are creating environments that are safe for people living with mental health challenges to come out if they wish to, without also pressuring them to come out with mental health challenges if they haven't created an environment that's safe for people to come out and say, hey, I live with anxiety, I live with depression, I live with bipolar, or whatever mental health challenge they may have.
Wow. Yeah, I could see how, in a way, the workplace, or like your overlap between the workplace and mental health, is a really powerful place to talk about it, because I could see it would be a place where people would actually want to hide that. But also, again, we're spending most of our time at work. It has a huge impact on our mental health.
Yeah, and our mental health impacts our work, and then our work impacts our mental health. So they go both ways. And again, we spend so much time there. And part of what I do with clients is to help them identify and own what sets them apart from everyone else. And part of that is showing up to work authentically. And if you live with the mental health challenge but can't go to work and share that or talk about it and feel uncomfortable, you're going to be wearing that mask and not feel a sense of belonging.
Wow. So you actually encourage people to talk about these challenges?
It depends on the person. So if they feel comfortable coming out, if it makes sense for them and their employers create an environment where it's safe, then I'll explore that with my clients. But other times, employers have created environments where there's shame and fear.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that we have seen with research that when employers encourage people to get help for their mental health, it actually decreases absenteeism, it decreases workman's comp. There's so many benefits to the employer, but employers just haven't invested enough resources in mental health.
Yeah, it's so powerful. I'm just kind of taking a moment, right, to recognize how impactful it can be, right? If you don't feel safe to share that, then like you said, you're walking around with this mask, but at the same time, if it isn't a safe environment to actually talk about your mental health challenges, then you're in a bind.
Yeah. And it's so challenging. And it's my job and my role, I speak about this, is to really work with employers to create places where people feel comfortable, if they wish to disclose their mental health challenges, and create environments where there's a sense of belonging, where people are included regardless of their mental health challenge and are able to show up authentically and share their full selves. And my goal is to hopefully have a day where people can share their full selves at lives, not one mask we have at work and then go home and take it off. I just want people to go through life without this mask.
I love that. We are aligned in that way, right? I often talk about when you're wearing a mask, you actually don't get to, well, first of all, it's exhausting, right? Second of all, you don't actually get to be loved or seen or understood for who you are.
Exactly. And it's so tiring. And I think it goes back to risk. It's scary to show up as yourself at work.
Yep.
Even in an interview, if you're job searching, it's scary to show up and be authentic and be you from the get-go. And there's two questions that come up a lot with my clients. The first is, what if they don't like me? What if they reject me? And then on the flip side, the question that comes up less often, but is even more scary, is what if they actually do like me? What if they like everything I have to offer? And then I have to keep showing up as my authentic self every single day at work. And I think that's just as scary, if not scarier.
Interesting. That actually is scary for people to really fully show up. I guess, that maps over into my work as well. Well, thank you so much. This has been really interesting and clarifying and powerful. And what's something that you would want to leave men with that we haven't talked about yet?
Something I would think about is asking yourself what legacy you want to leave on the world. And that can be both big or small. But a lot of my clients, when we're job searching, one of the questions I ask is, what do you want people to say about you at your funeral? And I realize that can be a little bit of a morbid question, but it can be also powerful.
Yeah, very powerful.
The job search, because you're not going to have pictures of you at your desk or presenting at a conference or on a Zoom webinar at your funeral. It's probably going to be pictures of your family and friends doing sporting events, whatever it may be that you love. And I think that can be powerful when navigating your job search, is how is this job going to support the life I want to live and the legacy I want to leave? And I encourage people to think about that as they navigate their job search, their careers, and their lives.
So powerful. I love that. Looking back from the end, right? From the funeral or from what you want to be remembered for, it really helps people frame what is actually important to me. Why am I doing all of this? Thank you so much, Kyle. Where can people find more of you?
Yes, my website, caffeinatedkyle.com, or I spend tons of time on LinkedIn, Kyle Elliott, with 2 L's and 2 T's.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you joined us for today's episode of Man Alive. I hope you enjoyed our conversation and it gave you something to consider and explore in your life. If you like what you heard, I'd be so grateful for you to subscribe and write a quick review that helps men like you find us. And again, head over to ShanaJamesCoaching.com/quiz, or text the word ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 to get a sense of how you can become a better lover and leader. You'll start to see how you can be both more respected and desired in your unique and genuine way. If you don't feel as confident or as excited about life or love as you'd like to be, this quiz is a really great starting point and will guide you toward a more passionate love life and a more inspiring and successful career. So again, text ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 or head over to ShaynaJamesCoaching.com/quiz. Join us each week for a new episode of Man Alive.